Well, all hell is breaking loose for the economic genius of this administration because the thing that Trump has been bragging about since his first campaign, the thing he swore he would fix forever for Americans, America's trade deficit, is getting worse. The kicker is that it's happening because of Trump's own policies. Since March, U.S. exports have not just slowed down, they have plunged. We're talking about billions of dollars in products that American companies used to sell overseas that are sitting unsold. Why? Because the rest of the world is deliberately walking away from the United States. Hedge fund manager Spencer Hakimian summed it up this way, quote, "Exports have fallen right off a cliff since March. Countries around the world are responding to the U.S. trade war by boycotting American goods and services, another penalty Americans are paying for Trump's tariff crusade. The penalty is not on Trump. Trump's a billionaire. He's fine. The penalty is on you. It's on you in terms of higher prices. It's on you in terms of fewer jobs. And it's on you in terms of a shrinking export market that makes the very trade deficit Trump hates even bigger. Think of that. Trump hates the trade deficit. He says, I want to export more than we import. Why are we importing so much from China? We should export to them. Well, the reason is 50, 60 years of economic policy that said, we want to import cheap stuff from China. We don't want to pay what it would cost to make all these tchotchkes in the United States. We'll get them from China. And so that's why we import more. And Donald Trump's tariffs are making the trade deficit even worse. You look at Canada. Canada is one of our top export markets. In 2024, Canada bought $28 billion in food products from the United States. Canadian stores are now being pressured. Do not stock, do not sell American food products. 71% of Canadians plan to buy fewer American food products this year. Trump added a 35% tariff on Canadian imports, which started August 1st. When you tax their goods, they don't thank you. They respond in kind. They tax your goods or they stop buying them. This is called a trade war. That's how it works.
Inflation has rose 3% since February. Come on, sip a little tea with Auntie. We definitely gonna talk about it. Come on now, y'all. From the month of February, that's March, April, May, June, July. It's just not August. So within 6 months, inflation has rose 3% already. No. MAGA supporters, the people who went down there to vote to Donald Trump, a lot of y'all voted based upon him saying what? We're going to lower these prices. Sleepy Joe Biden didn't know what he was doing. He caused all of this stuff to go up higher. Groceries to go up higher. Gas to go up higher. Food to go up higher. You said that. You said that Sleepy Joe Biden was the cause of the rise of everything. That once you get into office, that the prices will start to go down. I ain't seen it yet, y'all. 3% in 6 months. 3% rise in 6 months. Why, you ask, Auntie? Why? Pick me. Auntie knows the answer. Those damn tariffs, y'all. He thought that when he got in and he started throwing his weight around, hollering about the tariffs was going to be this, that those other countries was going to say, okay, Donald Trump, we're going to listen to what you're saying and we're not going to worry about anything. We'll pay what you want us to pay. Those countries said, ain't going to happen. So when he put a tariff, the other country put a tariff. He put another tariff, the other country put another tariff. It's a tit-for-tat war, back and forth. Who has to pay for their back and forths? Pick me again. I know the answer. The citizens of the United States, as well as the citizens of whatever country that he's doing the tit for tat with. There's no win. And I wish I could tell y'all, oh, it's about to get better, y'all. The price is going to go down. They're not. He still has tariffs into place that just kicked in not too long ago, y'all. So it's going to gradually go up and up and up and up. Prepare yourself for this bumpy ride the United States is about to take as long as that orange fella is in office. Thank y'all for sipping a little more tea with Auntie. Bye, y'all.
If you're someone that voted for Donald Trump and the Republicans because you thought they could manage and handle the economy better than Kamala Harris and the Democrats, check this out.
Voters on Trump and inflation. He won the 2024 election because he was more entrusted on inflation than Kamala Harris was, led by a margin of 9 points. Look at where his net approval stands today, though, on inflation. My goodness gracious. Into the gutter we go, underwater we go. He's 25 points underwater. My goodness gracious. That is where the Little Mermaid is, and he is matching the Little Mermaid. That's how far underwater he is on the issue that got him elected. He led on by 9 points on it last year, and now he's 25 points underwater. As I said, this is a complete and total disaster for the President of the United States.
So let's look ahead to 2026 when a lot of all the House Republicans, some senators going to be on the ballot. How is that shaping?
Yeah, if Republicans in Congress think that they can escape the wrath of the voters when it comes to inflation, I have a bit of a rude awakening for them. Trust which party more in inflation? You go back to the 2022 midterms, look at this. Republicans led by 13 points on which party was more trusted in inflation. Look at where we are now. Nearly a 15-point shift in the Democrats' direction. It's within the margin of error, but the Democrats up by a point. This just looks totally different from where we were back in 2022 when, of course, Republicans took back the House. That's what Democrats are trying to do this time around, looking much better for them. The bottom line is the wrath that the voters feel for Donald Trump and inflation is transferring over to House Republicans and now Democrats, although it's a small lead, a big difference from where we were back in October of 2022, with Democrats actually in the positive and Republicans in the negative.
Now, I know that's very shocking to a lot of you because you really did believe that Donald Trump was actually going to provide relief for you. Videos and information like this won't come from Donald Trump in the White House. So, with that being said, I think it's safe to say that Donald Trump has been lying to you, and that's why you're suffering right now. And if I were you, I would use this as an opportunity to leave the cult, all right? And never, ever go back to the cult, because you can see it and feel it yourself. The price of ground beef is going up. The price of your gasoline and your propane is going up. Your utility bills, they haven't been cut in half, have they? No. All lies. And while this is happening, he's blowing all the money he's taken from you through his tariffs. He's blowing it on things like putting the military in blue cities, sending the National Guard here and there, not providing any relief to the victims of these natural disasters. He's just using the money to fulfill his personal vendettas while you suffer. Those numbers that you just saw, they're not lies. It's the reality, and you know it. Your wallet knows it. Your family knows it. Your neighbors, your community, your friends, we all are feeling it. Donald Trump and the Republicans, they do not care about us. And it's clear as day. It's only going to get worse, but you can stop this in November in midterm. So give it some thought.
Inflation is rising out of control. Now, the CPI print just came out today, and it shows that the core CPI is up over 3% at 3.1%. The issue is, though, I think this is greatly understating the inflation. And I have a little bit of proof to show you. So before Doge cuts, about 10% of the CPI data was verified. That means they sent people out to local grocery stores to write down the numbers of what the pricing is, and they were able to have verified data. After the Doge cuts, though, we have went from having 10% of an estimate to 35% or more being estimated. Now, the other issue is we know that if Trump gets numbers that he doesn't like, he will fire that person. So I believe that inflation is actually much higher than 3.1%. because their estimations are low so that they don't get fired.
Washington, D.C. residents, well, we're not messing around. Massive protests broke out late last night, overnight, as federal law enforcement officials alongside Homeland Security, ICE, DEA, and even members of the National Guard started to set up checkpoints in parts of the city. One such checkpoint was actually near where I was yesterday. It was on 14th Street. This is a strip of area in Washington, D.C. that is known for nightlife, has a lot of clubs, has a lot of bars. But this specific area in 14th Street wasn't that active last night. And despite that, federal law enforcement officials set up a checkpoint to check vehicles as people were driving through, even arresting some individuals, literally pulling them out of their cars to do so. And while federal law enforcement were met with protests from DC residents, they were holding up signs saying "fascists go home," screaming at the law enforcement officers saying, quote, "Go home, fascists," right before the checkpoint was closed around 11 p.m. A lot of people thought that DC residents would just agree to what Donald Trump is doing, say that with Donald Trump, this federal takeover is exactly what we need in Washington, DC. But what we're seeing is the complete opposite. And residents are more and more protesting throughout the city as these checkpoints pop up, as law enforcement increases its presence. Now, what's interesting here is that the White House said that we should expect a significant increase of National Guard presence in and around DC overnight. That seemingly did not happen. We had this checkpoint set up. We've had FBI and DEA agents roaming the streets in parts of the city, including in more affluent parts of the city like Georgetown, where you're not having a ton of crime committed anyway. And despite that, you're not really having the 800 or so National Guard members driving around the streets in military vehicles, kind of like the White House said would happen. And so there's an interesting situation kind of showing up. If there was this crime emergency, this urgency, then why isn't it here? I mean, why aren't the National Guard out? Why aren't people making more arrests? Something just doesn't add up. And Donald Trump is now saying that he wants to seek, quote, long-term control of the DC Police Department, but he can't do that without congressional approval. And as I interviewed Chuck Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader, yesterday, he said, quote, "No fucking way." That's a direct quote from Schumer in response to whether or not Trump could have long-term control over the DC Police Department. Now, before I continue, please consider subscribing to support my work or sending a one-time donation via Venmo to Aaron-Parnas. Now, the White House is crediting Donald Trump's actions for dozens of overnight arrests in Washington, D.C. But here's the thing. There are arrests in Washington, D.C. every night. Celebrating 23 arrests in Washington, D.C. is nothing new. I mean, this happens. It's a city. It's a big city. It's the nation's capital. We've had dozens of arrests every night, every day, because crime is normal in cities across the country. And Washington, D.C., if you look at the statistics, isn't even in the top 10 for violent crime. Many red cities are. Washington, D.C., an overwhelmingly Democratic city, is not. So there's something going on here that the public just doesn't know about, but the public is protesting en masse. So it's really pretty stunning to see. Meanwhile, today Donald Trump got some worrisome news. U.S. Wholesale.
Breaking news, the Democrats are mad because inflation is stable. According to USA Today, inflation held steady in July as Donald Trump's sweeping import tariffs took a toll on consumer pricing. And here comes the excuses, but tariffs, which had a minimal effect on consumer pricing the first 5 months, began delivering a bigger blow in June. Forecasters expect a growing impact on costs any day now. Any day now, Donald Trump's tariffs are going to destroy our economy, except for Donald Trump's first term, it didn't destroy our economy. And the first 5-6 months has not destroyed our economy. And for any Democrat who's lying and saying that our inflation is horrible right now, it's 2.7%. Did you know that Joe Biden's incredible economy left office at 2.7%? So it's bad for Trump, but good for Biden? At the end of the day, this is what the Democrats want. They want our dollar to crash. They want our economy to crash. They want Donald Trump to fail, and they don't care about the costs.
So Peter Navarro was on CNBC this morning, and he was trying to explain to CNBC that the tariffs have nothing to do with inflation. And in fact, the tariffs are really helping us because they're getting the deficit down really a lot. And when Peter was talking, it was obvious that he didn't believe the things that he was saying. And so let's just look at this, for example. So let's explore this in a bit more detail. First of all, wholesale inflation prices came out today. So we now know that tariffs are having a direct effect on inflation in the United States. Nothing more to talk about there. It's happening. That's just the way it is. But let's talk about the deficit. Because Peter said that tariffs are really, really helping the deficit. And, you know, we're going to be in surplus for months and months ahead. And so let's look at this. So July budget deficit grew by 19%. It didn't go down. It went way up. In fact, 19%. Trump says that, in his word, that the tariff is a catalyst for a budget surplus. So July's deficit was $291 billion, which I just said is an increase of 19%. July spending, however, grew by 10%, yet the tax revenue was only 2%. Donald Trump is spending like crazy. And we've seen the projects that he's involved with. DC police, they cost money. DC ICE agents cost money. The National Guard in DC, it costs money. And so he is spending like a crazy man. So what's the result? The result is a deficit. And then Peter was still saying, well, tariffs are really helping us, but they're not. So tariff revenue in the same month, was $27.7 billion. So you have a deficit of $291 billion, but your tariff revenue is $27.7 billion. That's not going to make any difference whatsoever on your deficit. It's not going to have any impact. It's minimal at best. In fact, year to date, and this is to August, the federal deficit year to date is $1.629 trillion. That's 7% up from Joe Biden this time last year. That's right. Trump is running up a deficit big time. And the tariff revenue in the same area of time is $135.9 billion. Again, it's not scratching the surface of the deficit. So what Peter Navarro was saying this morning is complete nonsense. What Trump is saying, that the tariffs are helping the deficit, is complete nonsense. What does this mean? Tariffs are pushing up inflation, and they're having a very, very minimal effect on the actual deficit. Folks, I hope you didn't mind all the numbers there. My name is Nick. I'd love you guys to give me a follow. Let me know what you think about this in the comments.
What Trump just did with the economic data is going to change everything. Less than 2 weeks ago, Trump fired the boss for the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, whose job it is to report on inflation, on price increases, and report on the job market so that we could get a detailed, accurate report of what exactly is going on with the economy. And he cited that the reason why he fired her was because of a weak jobs report, and he said that the data was rigged and that it's been rigged for a long time, so she needed to be replaced. And he did replace her. He replaced her with this guy, E.J. Antoni. And here's what's interesting. E.J. Antoni was literally handpicked yesterday to be the new head of the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. And now this guy, who's only been in his position for less than 24 hours, was given the task of giving the country our inflation report. And it's really not the inflation report that we should be questioning. It's what he said about his new position and what he wants to actually make adjustments to. Because on the first Friday of every month, he's supposed to report on the jobs numbers. And well, Trump is questioning the jobs numbers, saying that they've been rigged for a while. So what did E.J. Antoni say? Maybe we should just pause the jobs report until we know that the information is accurate. So we have Trump, who goes in and fires the head of the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, saying that, hey, your jobs numbers are inaccurate, and I don't even know if I can trust your numbers on inflation. And then this guy, who's handpicked by Trump to be the new head of the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, says, well, if the jobs reports aren't accurate, we just won't release them until we know that they are. And those job report numbers are very important because it helps the Federal Reserve know whether to raise interest rates, lower interest rates, or keep them the same. So now we have a CPI report that we're uncertain if it's accurate or not. And now we have a new head of the Bureau of Labor and Statistics that's basically saying, I'm not going to give you the report on the jobs until I know that it's actually right. And meanwhile, us U.S. citizens are sitting here saying, what the hell is going on? But don't worry about that, because my name is Rick, and I hope you turn daily news into daily profit. So we'll get through this.
So the numbers came back, and they're not great. And we told y'all, we said, used to this? Okay. No, it's good for the economy. It's good for the economy. Shut the fuck up. And now Trump, what he will do, will say, oh, whoever made those numbers up is wrong. That's not true, and it's not my fault. It's Biden's fault, and it's the Democrats' fault. Shut the fuck up.
Thanks to Donald Trump's tariffs, wholesale prices have seen their biggest surge in 3 years. This isn't just a small increase either. The yearly rate of wholesale inflation climbed to 3.3% from 2.4%, a 5-month high. Additionally, the core rate of inflation rose 0.6% in July, and that was the biggest increase in 3.5 years. Food prices were the largest contributor to this, but also higher prices for metal and imported goods pushed this number up. This spike comes after the Trump administration imposed the highest tariffs we've seen in the U.S. in decades, significantly raising the price of all imported goods. As we know, tariffs are a tax on the importers, but people like Trump like to lie and claim that they're a tax on foreign countries. In reality, American businesses end up paying the higher price, and of course they pass it along to consumers to keep their profit margins up. And when wholesale prices rise, that's a very big deal because the increase in price trickles down to everyday goods, meaning grocery bills, service costs, and manufactured products are going to become more expensive in the coming months. But what's really concerning is that service costs, which is the biggest driver of inflation, rose 1.1% in July alone. We're seeing the pressure build in our supply chain. People are already starting to notice effects, but I promise it's only going to get worse.
Village idiot Donald Trump apparently tried to shake down the finance minister of Norway to get a Nobel Peace Prize. Because why not? The Guardian reported today, the Associated Press reported this too. I saw it, the article there. I'm sure other news outlets are picking this up slowly. Irrespective, The Guardian, Trump reportedly called Norwegian minister out of the blue to ask about Nobel Prize. Donald Trump cold called Norway's finance minister last month to ask about a nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize, Norwegian press reported on Thursday. The Norwegian outlet Dagens Næringsliv, I can't say that word, citing unnamed sources, reported, quote, out of the blue, while Finance Minister Jens Stoltenberg was walking down the street in Oslo, Donald Trump called. He wanted the Nobel Prize and to discuss tariffs. Jens, let's make a deal, Jens. You give me the Nobel Peace Prize. Put in a good word. I'll give you low tariffs. Or otherwise, the tariffs are going to be 473% to Norway. We love Norway. I love Norway. You're a wonderful person. You've been very nice to me. But let's get that Peace Prize. The outlet added that it was not the first time that Trump had raised the question of a Nobel Peace Prize nomination to Stoltenberg in a statement to Reuters. Stoltenberg, the former NATO Secretary General, said the call focused on tariffs and economic cooperation ahead of Trump's call with Jonas Støre, the Norwegian Prime Minister. Quote, I will not go into further details about the content of the conversation, Stoltenberg said, adding that several White House officials, including the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer, were on the call. And then the article just goes into Trump's sordid history over the last several months, desperately trying to steal, beg, borrow, or get, or buy maybe a Nobel Peace Prize. You know, he's got to get it because Obama got one, and, you know, he hates Obama because Obama was president, was beloved by many people, is incredibly intelligent, is a man of color, right? Donald doesn't like any of that. Now, if you remember, the village idiot Donald Trump was impeached for trying to shake down another world leader. Granted, it was much more nefarious and inappropriate than this, although this is pretty fucking inappropriate. If you remember, during his first term, the village idiot tried to shake down Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, basically offering to sell him weapons that Ukraine desperately needed in its war against Russia in exchange for dirt on his political opponent, his chief political opponent, Joe Biden. That didn't really work out, and the village idiot was subsequently impeached for that. This is an impeachable offense, if it were to be proven true as well. Again, not nearly as bad, but bad, and completely expected.
Thanks to Donald Trump's tariffs, wholesale prices have seen their biggest surge in 3 years. This isn't just a small increase either. The yearly rate of wholesale inflation climbed to 3.3% from 2.4%, a 5-month high. Additionally, the core rate of inflation rose 0.6% in July, and that was the biggest increase in 3.5 years. Food prices were the largest contributor to this, but also higher prices for metal and imported goods pushed this number up. This spike comes after the Trump administration imposed the highest tariffs we've seen in the U.S. in decades, significantly raising the price of all imported goods. As we know, tariffs are a tax on the importers, but people like Trump like to lie and claim that they're a tax on foreign countries. In reality, American businesses end up paying the higher price, and of course they pass it along to consumers to keep their profit margins up. And when wholesale prices rise, that's a very big deal because the increase in price trickles down to everyday goods, meaning grocery bills, service costs, and manufactured products are going to become more expensive in the coming months. But what's really concerning is that service costs, which is the biggest driver of inflation, rose 1.1% in July alone. We're seeing the pressure build in our supply chain. People are already starting to notice effects, but I promise it's only going to get worse.